And what is up, people? Welcome to the first episode of the NA podcast, aka Not Acceptable. It's Counter-Strike podcast. It's Counter-Strike talk show. I'd like to refer it to as a talk show, Pally. And yeah, speaking of which, my co-host here, that Paladin, is going to be talking about the news, but not just discussing. We are going to be debating. We have our hot takes prepped and ready to go for about an hour runtime is what we're aiming for here on the podcast. So first things first, Pally, how are we doing?
I'm doing fantastic. You know, I want to see the sparks fly. That's what we're here for. We got an hour to just get into the nitty gritty, or maybe not even the nitty gritty. Maybe just like hot takes.
Yeah,
and that's what we're all about.
Yeah,
let's get down to it.
I think before we do head into it, a quick explanation of the premise of this show. I guess we take a little bit of inspiration from the guys over at ESPN and what they've ran at Pardon the Interruption. Every segment is going to have a time limit. We will only be able to go through as many topics as we can in said time limit. Of course, we want to go into every topic in depth. So if we certainly hate a topic, well, simply said, we don't have to talk about it. That's the big deal here. On the right side, well, when I get the production fixed up, look at me go. But we'll be going through every single segment on the right side. You can see as they should fade out as they go along. So if you guys listening to podcast or audio only, well, I mean, honestly, all things said, I think this can work just fine as an audio podcast. We'll see. This is the first darn episode, so we're all experimenting here, Pally.
Yeah, no, we got to get into it. We got a lot of ideas gestating. We've got a lot of ideas on the table for this episode alone. So let's just see how it rolls.
Yep.
Let's get into it.
Let's go ahead and dive right on in. So first things first, we have to go ahead and, head over to the recent news because, well, we have to talk about it. Even though this is a North American podcast and we got to talk about North America, it has its own segment dedicated to it. Come on, folks. We'll go ahead and head into our recent news. Because guess what, folks? Well, if that was anything wasn't, suspicious enough about, an NA podcast, we have to talk about what just happened recently, just yesterday, and that is IEM Cologne. Before we do, though, let's go ahead and set a 15-minute timer because that's how long we're going to be talking about Cologne. That's all the time EU gets around here, Pally. So, I mean, any thoughts about this format before we jump in?
This is perfect. I like this. We need to give all of the other people, we need to talk about them and get that out of the way. And then we'll give way to the best region later on. And that's where we actually start to enjoy this podcast a little bit more. This is the tedious grunt work, And so give us a little bit of time and we'll be out of here shortly.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and jump right on in. Our first segment of this entire podcast, of the series as a whole, we'll be jumping into, well, a FaZe clan, of course, winning in IEM Cologne. Specifically, though, I mean, there's been a lot of talk around them having an era in their own right. They've won Cologne, but of course, they've won Katowice earlier this year. And they've also won the major. They've won all 3 S-tier events so far this year, barring the Blast Spring final. Is this an era that we're looking at right now, Paladin, or are we looking at something that's a little bit different to what we've seen in the past?
It's different in the sense that like all of the era-defining teams don't necessarily have the caveats that FaZe do. And just for that reason alone, I'm trying to hold off on the era talk just yet. Like, I think they need one more tournament, get that Grand Slam confirmed. And then it's like, okay, well, look at the results that they had. You look at C9 winning IEM Dallas. They lost to them there in the semis. And then in Blast Spring Finals, they also lost to the champions of Na'Vi in the semis there as well. So you can make a case that the tournaments that they lost to the tournament champions. Mm-hmm. And then they got rid of everybody else that they needed to in every other tournament, which were, again, the most important ones of the year. And so I'm not going to say they have an era just yet. We got to hold back on that just a little bit longer, in my opinion. Give it just that EPL or that Blast. I mean, honestly, let's just say EPL to be safe here. If they can win that, I think we're pretty much there.
I mean, they haven't walked in as like the huge favorites to every event. I think the biggest thing that's preventing FaZe from, being of era status is, they have competition is the biggest thing. FaZe clan at the moment are working with against Na'Vi every single time. It goes down to the wire every single time against Na'Vi is the biggest thing that's working against FaZe Clan. Even then, there are plenty of teams that are looking to cause upsets. Look, the Movistar Riders, the FaZe Clan didn't blow them out necessarily, but you know, that's a team that's red hot in form. In the past, they've had trouble against teams like ENCE. They've had bumps in the road to their victories, I think is the biggest thing. I think one thing you want to compare it to, like Astralis in 2018, 2019, that run of form where, you know, of course the 4 majors went down. That is the definition of an era where a team walks in as an undeniable favorite, so much so that the tournament is boring because Astralis would win that type of thing. That's, I think, that's a quintessential element of what an era is. I'm not sure FaZe has captured that yet, but you do make a good point there, Pally.
Yeah, I think that the thing is that once they win a couple of tournaments in their bag, like they have that aura, it just comes with the tournament wins, and that people are still going to give them that credence that, you know, they're winning titles, they must be doing something right. And they are a very clutch team. They win a lot of these 50-50 games, and I think that is it'll be a very unique era, to say the least. I think if they actually get it done, I think the Grand Slam you have to give it a little bit of credit, and I think that's what we'll have to look at once this player break is complete.
Yeah, so okay, we'll continue shifting down the pipeline here of recent news, of course covering everything Cologne, and a lot of stuff went down at Cologne. A lot of storylines were brewed up, especially as Astralis somehow in this tournament made it into a semi-final appearance. They placed top 4 here in IEM Cologne in a moment where they almost got eliminated in the play-in stage by Big Clan. So all things said, things got really weird, and maybe Astralis are they back? Are they here to play, or are they still? Should we still expect the same out of Astralis?
This feels like a lot of fool's gold to me. Like when I see this roster, I'm not truly impressed by it. I think there are some very good pieces. BlameF is honestly one of the top players in the world as of right now, regardless of result. He is absolutely playing lights out right now. Config is finally starting to find a little bit of form that we are hoping to see for quite some time. And maybe that's you have to give a little bit of credit to Blame as well, calling on Mirage and whatnot. And Glaive, again, I don't think he's somebody you can touch regardless of result. The guy is brought into a lot of this organization and has made it for what it is today. And so I think that trio is very, very comfortable. Now, where does this whole argument fall apart? Well, obviously, the 2 players that I'm not talking about, Farley and Xyp9x. Farley is a player that, while I do think is a very good one, I don't think he is ready for an Astralis caliber of an organization right now. Astralis as an org, they've won 4 majors. They've had their era, as we've mentioned previously. And to me, I think their sights should just be set on not being a top 10 team, but being a top 5 team, a top 3 team, and not 3 or 2, right? They want to be the best team in the world. And so I'm hoping that they can make the necessary cuts and they don't actually look at this result and say, look, this isn't a flash in the pan. This is what we actually think is a good roster. I hope that they can cut basically the fat from the key parts of the meat and get that good steaming hot piping dish out to the world, right? And I think they have a couple of good pieces to pick up. They can bring in Device, they can bring in Valde, and from what we're hearing from the rumors, though, I'm very skeptical as to the future of Astralis and whether or not they'll actually be able to replicate something like this again.
I think right now, though, there's some reason to say that this is a better Astralis than we've seen before. I think Astralis have been, reeking of mediocrity as of late in prior tournaments and prior events. But I'm seeing Xyp9x as a whole having a bit of a renaissance as a player. Don't get me wrong, he was bottoming out at the start of this year. But I think he's been a key component in keeping Astralis competitive here. BlameF is having pop-off games, especially on his Mirage. On his Mirage, the map he's supposed to be calling on. Maybe he calls around himself a little bit, but he's rocking a 1.5 rating on the map in the past 3 months, over 12 maps played. BlameF is just averaging a pop-off performance on the map, which is absolutely obscene. I think this Astralis lineup has room to move. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'm not sold on it. I hope that they can make a move quicker, sooner rather than later. Kind of similar to how Heroic has been doing it with Yabi into Refresh. And so let's see if that actually holds any merit, right? We'll get to see them very early on with the Blast Fall groups. And if they get out, hey, maybe there are legs to it, and I'll eat my words there.
Yeah. Let's go ahead, keep shifting along, because we got topics to cover and only 7 minutes to cover them. Next up, Well, we're talking another team coming out of IEM Cologne, blazing red hot, and that is the Movistar Riders. Movistar Riders came into the event. I mean, I wouldn't say a complete underdog, but is this run? I mean, this run was unbelievable considering their expectations in this event. Is this replicable from a team like this?
I think there has to be just a little bit of an overperformance from a lot of these players that you probably aren't going to get at the same level, and like that whole perfect storm of it all to happen again and again at an S tier tournament. The fact of the matter is that a lot of these players can be read as time goes on, and they will have a little bit of time to actually just develop their playbook a little bit more, develop a little bit more depth. And I think they'll still be definitely a competitor moving forward. There are pieces here that, whether or not they actually reach those same heights, will still be a threat to a lot of these teams. I think there will still be an upset team. They will make these odd playoff runs here or there, but I don't think they'll ever become title contenders. But I will say I think this run at Cologne is officially put them on the map, and we can't undersell them any longer. And that's, I think, the biggest thing about that I want to take away from this Movistar run is that they are a legit team. That there is no fluke sense of this run, right? They've beaten some pretty pretty tenured teams to get to this point.
I guess that, I mean, it makes sense to my ears, but I think the one biggest thing about the Riders that could contribute to a fall in form, and it's been an issue that's plagued them for so long. Let's be honest, like even in the past, they've had a 5-0 run in EPL groups, and what happened there, right? They, if you remember, early March of this year, they went ahead and flopped out of that after just losing a very just one-sided series to ENTS in early March. And that is one big thing about Movistar, is that at least their players historically have struggled with consistency. Alex and Mapaz had an amazing event, and well, I'll talk about Mapaz maybe a little bit later, but I think those two players, Pius is just a consistent player. I'm not taking anything away from them, but I think their individuals and a couple of their players who normally, go cold against, the tier two teams had a nuclear event, a deadly consistent event. And can we rely on that anymore? That's only question marks for me. So that's kind of what I'm going to leave it at there for the Riders, is they've had consistency issues in the past. We've seen this happen before. I'll need another event for them to convince me that this is worth anything.
Definitely.
All right, well, shifting along, because we got more stuff to cover. We'll talk about Team Liquid in a bit, because there's a whole region dedicated to the glorious state of North America. State, I guess we'll talk state as synonym to country. Let's go ahead and head into the next topic, as we'll go ahead and drop into, I guess, more of the recent news that came out of Cologne. Masuda is up on the market. Initially, this segment was gonna be about us saying should Vitality make changes. Well, Vitality answered that question for us. Is Spinx the solution, or is Masuda the problem?
Oh god, I wish we had so much more time for this. Like, I saw this report this morning and I was just like, what the hell are they thinking? It's an instant upgrade. Like, don't get me wrong, like if on paper, it is awesome to get a player like Spinx. He's a top 5 player in the world right now. That's undeniable. But you have to think about, what is Vitality doing wrong, in the sense that why are they not getting consistent results? And to me, I'm thinking about fundamental issues. Communication, philosophies not gelling as much. And to me, I think that is a clear Zonic or Apex approach, and we still have not gotten the answer between that. The guys love each other, but I think bringing in a third culture into this mix is just going to be stressful on all accounts. And I don't think I feel like this is a very band-aid situation rather than like an actual medical treatment to the problem.
Yeah, I think that's, Spinx has a very high individual ceiling. Sometimes it doesn't even show through on ends.
Yeah.
Spinx as a whole is one of the top. I think he's already gone out there and proven he's an S tier rifler, or close to it. Like maybe at least a top 10 rifler in the world.
I think he's there. Yeah.
Yeah. This guy is no joke. And replacing him for Masuda, admittedly, Masuda does not play the most fun roles. In addition, he sometimes performs in those roles. Is one of the biggest things out of Vitality is, he's a player that can have a pop-off game and take over. I think some of the blame has to go on other members of Vitality not pulling through. ZywOo's no longer a superstar. He is a great player, but he is not, #1 in the world contender.
It's a far cry, right? He's just fallen so far from form. It used to be like a #1 and #2 battle. Now it's like a #1, and he's clawing to make it back to #2. Right?
Like he's a top 10 discussion, I guess. But like, outside of that, definitely no results necessarily to back it up. No, none of that. So I mean, maybe they get another hard carry. Maybe they need to up their firepower game. They can't lean back on Masuda. And, they get a smart player out of Masuda. I think he's evolved into a smart player over these last 2 years with Vitality. Can you believe it? It's been 2 years with Vitality.
It's crazy, yeah.
But the biggest thing is maybe they just need to step up and get a younger blood who's just out there to frag, out there to fight. Who knows? Anyways, let's keep moving on because we got a minute left to get this next one done. All right. Well, we have, by the way, for those wondering, we have a segment known as Overtime where we can cover the topics that we missed, of course. So, with 55 seconds remaining to go, give us the LXCV talk.
Look, something like this had to have happened, and I like that they're actually taking this approach that Vitality isn't, where you have, again, 2 different philosophies. You have LXCB, you have the XTAS, and honestly, you have to factor in the Nico effect as well. And so I'm thinking that they're trying to cut down the number of parties that they have to appease in this situation. And they're saying, hey, LXCB, we're just going to put it on you. The fragging is a little bit low. The cohesion is lacking. Let's try to bring in another IEM game leader. Maybe Nico calls. Who knows at that point? But I'm just glad that they're cutting off down a party.
Yeah,
that's the big takeaway for me.
I mean, losing LXCV, I think the biggest question that a lot of the community has gone and asked is who's going to be next? And the biggest thing, I mean, you have names like Alex being thrown around. He's going to get back in. Nico IGLing. What the hell are we even talking about? We're done. All right. Next segment. Well, since we're on a roll, no, we're not even gonna hit 1 minute as Zen. Come on now. We got better things to talk about with our time. Let's go ahead and roll it over to, of course, the best region. And what's up, gents? Let's go ahead and start up this timer because we got about, I believe, 15 minutes that we're going to be working with this one. We have a lot to dive into for North America, a lot of time to do it as well. So, well, that's my opinion. I'm not sure about yours, Pally, but 15 minutes seems like plenty to go through what we got for NA this week. Good performance at Cologne, all that good stuff. Any NA apologetics? Yeah, that would work. Any NA apologetics before we hop in?
I'm just so happy that we have a dedicated segment to this. And it's not enough time. It's not enough time because we need to give this region the credit it deserves and give it all the little bit of shine that we possibly can. And so I'm glad we have this little bit of a segment here. It's unequivocally us, you and I, both North Americans, and we can enjoy this as much as we want, rag and celebrate as much as we want about this region. So let's get into it.
All right, let's go ahead and dive because we have a couple topics that we want to talk about. We didn't talk about Liquid yet in Cologne, but they have their own segment here. Team Liquid, of course, for those just been not even like living under a rock. We've just been like living in orbit. If you've been on the International Space Station, and you haven't heard about Team Liquid making it to the quarterfinals of IEM Cologne, I don't blame you. Well, here, folks, TL made a big run deep into IEM Cologne. With the addition of, I think, Daps getting accustomed to the lineup, OC getting accustomed, and the addition of Yekindar. Are they back is the biggest thing.
Hey, the headline says it like as bright and bold as possible. It's Copium, but it's here. We have it in full supply, and I'm absolutely floored by how much I enjoyed Yekindar on this team. Mm-hmm. We needed a force of nature on this team for so long, just a voice of reason and somebody who was a very fiery character as a whole. And just on every sense of the word, it makes so much sense. And I don't know how they pulled the strings to make this happen, but I am so glad that it did because you can clearly see the energy of all of these players. They just seem so much more refreshed. OC is also being as proactive as ever. He's finally slotted into this lineup and actually looks like that S-tier opera that we were hoping to see after how well he did on Extra Salt for so long. And man, like, it just, you can just see the energy and the smiles on all of these players. Elite just had a little bit of a renaissance as well. Dabs are just fired up. You players that you weren't expecting to see when you had Shox in this lineup. It's like a far cry from what you saw in that iteration. And so I'm hoping that no matter what happens, we can try to stick them together, because you give them a little bit more time. There are a couple of situations here or there that you can definitely see that they need a little bit more time, a little bit more gelling, and a little bit more chemistry to add in. But the building blocks are there. I'm already excited for TL, and I'm kind of on board already. I'm trying to cross the Delaware River as soon as possible.
I think one of the biggest things, I think, okay, you brought up a really good point that I wasn't really anticipating. That is like body language of the TL players.
Oh yeah.
For those who weren't watching in the online era, like, you should watch Elijah's veins popping out of his face, all right? There are a lot of things that were showing that this Team Liquid team was going south. I think the mood for this event was in a moment of just, like, nothing to lose. They were happy to be there. There was just something different that we saw that just gave us, like, compared to, like, other runs that we've seen, them making it deep into ESL Pro League and then, getting 1v5'd, but, we're not going to talk about that too much. But, I think this is a different Team Liquid that we're looking at. Players are, I think, much more acutely motivated. I think Nitro being back in the ranks certainly helps. I think this Team Liquid team has the right blend to be maybe a top 5 contender. Are they going to be a consistent event winner? Are they going to go ahead? They might make a dream run, I will say, but they could be a very, very competent and easy playoff team. That's what I'll rate it.
In my eyes, it's like, if we keep this team together until Rio, like, I think they could pretty comfortably make it into the playoffs. And then once we're in Rio, that's going to kind of, all bets are off if they make the playoffs there. I'd like to see us get to that point. I'd like to at least have them as a roster lock for the RMR, and I hope we can get to that point. But until then, it's just like, fingers crossed that Mr. Biden gives him his visa.
Yeah. We're all, reports on the streets that, North American Counter-Strike fans thronging outside the White House as they are demanding Joe Biden give Yakinder a work visa here in the United States. So there we go. Thank you so much, Joe Biden, for your caring and kindness to the American people. I think one last mention to at least what this lineup has been brewing. I think this lineup hasn't even hit its peak, all things said. I think there's still,
not at all.
I think there's still some work to be done, even in the games that I did see throughout Cologne. There's still maybe some, mistakes that could be ironed out. I think the one thing watching Team Liquid is so painful is that it never feels like they can win around comfortably. Maybe that's just
those
me being a fan.
Buys, man.
The half buys, dude. Losing ecos, and it never feels comfortable watching Team Liquid, but, considering that they're getting the results, it's that the results mean something. All right, let's quickly move on. We spent 5 minutes talking about Liquid. They probably deserve the majority of the time. Let's go ahead and hit the other parts of North America. Specifically, EGPA have just qualified for ESL Challenger Series Melbourne. Is this the first step for the EG project, or is it still just a meme, a 15-player meme?
It's definitely a step in the right direction, I'll tell you that much, because we had a pretty good field, I think, at the close qualies. I don't think there were any slouchers, per se. I think everyone is pretty even in that sense. We'll talk about a couple other teams in that close qualifier, but having to qualify after the kind of press nightmare that some of these players had to go through, and I know I'm just viewing Twitter, like, these guys are very excited about it, but you can definitely see there's this underlying, like, unease about, like, the 15-player project, and Reddit's gonna Reddit, and we've definitely seen that there's a little bit of hubbub in that sense, and we'll talk about the main roster as well and whatnot. But I think PA has always been a roster that I've loved watching. I think they've always had good pieces. I've loved Ben Leet calling. He's always been somebody that I've enjoyed watching him progress through the NA scene after playing on Chaos and whatnot. And so I hope that they actually put on a good performance at Melbourne, because that will silence a lot of this conversation on as to whether or not this project is actually something worthy. And personally, I don't think that this was necessary, but if it gives them funding, if it gives them a meaning and a reason to keep playing, fine by me.
Yeah. I think one really big thing about the EG project at the moment and the Counter-Strike they've been playing is that through that close qualifier, they were playing much more clean Counter-Strike. I think Party Astronauts in general, just a messy team. They were brawly. We want to watch them play during the RMR against, international competition. Those rounds were messy. They came off the back of multi-kills. And like just big individual moments. These players are individually very talented compared to maybe the average person walking out of NA. Like that genuinely said they almost made the major. Like just think about that for a sec. They were just one series away from taking down Imperial. So, and then they had to run through the like 6-team or the 4-team bracket with like Pain Gaming, 9Z, and EG. That's not a fun bracket to run through. So, all things said, I think this part of the Astronauts team still has potential. And this is like gonna be their international, like they've had a couple international debuts. The Pinnacle Cup didn't go well, but from what I see of this team, it is improvement. And in my opinion, yeah, this is a step in the right direction for EG. I just got to get Carpe Diem up and running as well.
Yeah, I mean, Carpe Diem have an even taller task ahead of them, trying to fight through Challenger League, and then it's like, what? You qualify for conference. If you win Challenger League, then what? You don't actually get to play through that conference. It's a very difficult situation for those guys, and I hope they at least get an opportunity or look into the main roster because they've got some good pieces. Both of these rosters have some good pieces, and I just hope that they get an opportunity to play at these Tier 1 tournaments and at least usher in an attempt at trying to like mold these players and put them into a situation where they can play Tier 1. Because if not, then what's the point, right? Are we just going to let them waffle around the Tier 2 space and just say cut down their aspirations of trying to play in a major regularly? Like, it's really tough in my eyes for them, and I hope that they can find strike a balance between those three rosters, and I don't think we're there yet.
Totally. I think there's just, I mean, well, I think it's going to transition to another one of our topics that we have down the stretch. But I mean, EG being able to practice consistently against the other probably most practicable team in North America that's been regarded by is the Carpe Diem guys. So that's always a very nice thing. They've had a long boot camp, so at least I'm on board with what EG are up and running with. Next up, however, diving into our other team that went through that Melbourne closed qualifier, ATK are in a bit of an interesting spot. Recently, they added Swisher, who was a massive addition, a very tangible improvement from this ATK team who almost won Challenger League last season. But again, they are falling to the plague of falling short every single time. When is this ATK team going to play at an international event? And I'm sure the people running the organization are wondering that as well. Should we worry about this lineup?
To me, I really like what ATK is bringing to the table. You have a very proactive player in Swisher. I'm really glad that we have a player like him in the scene right now, a youngster that's willing to work, that's willing to put in the time and try out any possible projects in this space that have promise within them. I'm glad that he tried the Orglis project out. Sucks that they couldn't actually qualify for the RMR, but that is what it is. And he already looked like the better piece in the BNB puzzle as well. And obviously, you can see that there's a tangible upgrade. When we talked to Mistum over there at on the Nerd Out Here podcast,
True.
He was also singing his praises. So I'm happy to see that we have a player like that on a team like this who have been getting good results. You have a player like Bowden who's aggressive as ever, and he's also performing very well. Spray is a coach that has been putting in a lot of time to develop this team. And to me, it's like before, when they were in this close qualities, they were getting just bombed. They were just bombing out
That's
in last
true.
place. And to me, it's like getting second at Challenger League, losing to who did they lose to? Did they lose to Pain?
Yeah.
Pain. They lost to Pain. Well, I think that's a perfectly admirable opponent to lose to. And then they were very close to actually qualifying for Melbourne. They banged out PA before, right, in the very opening round, and they couldn't actually get it done in the following. And so to me, it's like I don't want to worry about this team just yet. I say give them a couple more chances. Let's see how they do to qualify for Rotterdam. Let's see how they. I mean, maybe they'll show up at Frag. Let's see how they do there as well.
True.
I think there's a couple more opportunities in their midst to just say give them more time. Let's see what happens. And I think that there's still a lot of potential in this roster, at least in my eyes.
I'll agree with there's still potential, but I think this roster is coming close to being on the chopping block. There's little international appearance, no international appearances from this team, just outside of, I mean, if you want to call Philadelphia an international event with, a Norwegian and a Brazilian team in attendance, but then go on ahead. But I think there is some cause for concern. Will they make changes during the player break? There is potentially. You just have this long 2-month stretch. You kind of just have those losses lingering in the back of your mind and thinking, well, we kind of need to, go close to winning these next set of tournaments, or else we are making roster changes again. So, I mean, that's what's up in the air at the moment for ATK. I think there is a possibility that there could be changes through this player break. Maybe a player from South Africa who's all on abroad returns home. Maybe MOTM is on the chopping block. There is, a list of players potentially, of course, for ATK. But I think the biggest thing right now is we don't know, but they are in a bit of a precarious position when it comes to, just coming so close. They need to win. They came here to win. They came here to dominate. And that's not quite what they're doing right now, Pally.
They're just in limbo. And I think that one way or the other, it's going to give way one way or another. And I'm very interested to see where it goes, because this organization is a promising one. They've been putting a lot of time and effort into the just space, and I'm glad that we have them at least to like put in effort. And I think that's the biggest thing right now.
Yeah. Moving on. Well, here is kind of one of the bigger talking points here of this one. Well, we had EG Party Astronauts make it into, Challenger Melbourne. They'll be traveling to Australia towards the beginning of next season. EG's main roster has yet to be seen for the entire second half of the season. Well, we already know there's rumors going on behind the background. What else is there for this EG camp?
Well, when they didn't make IEM Dallas, we were already like, okay, well, they're not going to get to play anything now, because they didn't even send their main roster to PCC. And it was just like, okay, well, are we just collecting paychecks here? What's really going on? And obviously the whole Stewie drama happened. And now at this point, in my eyes, it's like, just do something. And they are doing something. You signed on 10 other players. You're not actually trying to bring them forward. And that's what's really brutal to me. It's just like, you signed on 10 players. You're not actually trying to experiment with them. Instead, you're bringing international talent. And we've had a couple discussions and debates beforehand, but personally, I'm not a fan. At least initially, I feel like they haven't exhausted all options yet.
Hold on. I want to bring up something before the timer runs down. Give me one moment as I...
Truer words have not been spoken.
Yeah, that's my thoughts and opinions regarding this whole matter. So, yeah, for EG, come on, wake up, my friends. There's going to be a whole lot of roster changes. Hooksy, Nealon, Valde.
Yeah.
Freaking, maybe Montu returns back now that he's off. We have no idea. So
I just hope EPL give them a real cold shower. You know, if they come in last again. I
think they might get a... Okay, well, we'll talk about that later in overtime. We got another segment to get to. Let's talk about, well, bringing it into... We'll take a break for the player break, I guess. That's how it works. It's like a 6-second break. Damn, I really want that 1 minute of Zen now, but we'll have to think about that for the next episode. Welcome back, folks. We're going into our event preview. I'll set a timer for, approximately 10 minutes. Can't promise anything out here in this wild world that is the Not Acceptable podcast. We have, I'll tack in one minute, start talking about this, but this is our player break preview. What teams should be making roster changes, what teams shouldn't be making roster changes, or what teams will... I don't know. I don't think there's anything between they are making roster changes and they aren't making roster changes.
This is tough, because it's like some of these rosters, they had like a pretty lucky spree of tournaments. Like in Cologne in particular, they just had a good run that I'm thinking that they're not going to make a move, even though I think they should. Like, I think Mouse should make a roster move. I think Astralis should also make a roster move. But... You know what? Let's just go with NIP. I think NIP should just get in an actual opera. Yeah. I think say bye to Plopsky, bring in a storied opera, make Esatag some play more Plopsky's roles. I think you could actually have a contending team. I like the pieces that they already have, and I think they just need a dedicated opera. And I'm upset that they haven't. I hate that they're like kind of wearing rose-tinted glasses for the last couple of months. They're just like, you know what? Wait, this is the 5 that we're sticking with. We totally don't have Device on our bench or anything. Like we really want this Danish player as on the AWP and not the other one.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's just me.
All right. I mean, I think NIP are due for a change. If I can run through, let's actually bring up their team at the moment, because I think Device has been benched for almost a year now. We're coming up on that.
Yeah.
Like they are, yeah. He's been time on team. Okay, we'll bring this up. Time on team was a year and 2 months, but I think he's been benched since like last October. Oh no, wait, was he? Okay, wait, hold on. That's not Device. I'm silly.
I think one of the things that I heard is that he's approaching the situation where he's been benched longer than he's actually played, and that's a very, very concerning statistic if that is true. Somewhere, I don't know if he's crossed that line or not, but man, that is just crazy to think about.
Yeah. This is this is a pretty mean looking. I mean, look at the trophy cabinet too for this guy. I think he still has some gas in him, and I think NIP are certainly missing someone like him. I mean, hey, on the flip side, Astralis are missing someone like him. Now I'm saying
Definitely, yeah.
There's a man named Farley, and he hasn't. Even though Astralis make the quarterfinals of Cologne, I think I would say I think we both made our sentiments clear that Astralis's run during Cologne was a little bit copium, if you can say that. They kind of beat weaker teams. Barley could definitely still be making an exit during this player break, and well, bring out the old guns. I don't know how Device is gonna act about that, but
I think he'd like it. At least that's from what I've heard in the rumor mill. That seems like a possible roster move, one that he's tilting to a little bit more. I mean, he's moved out of Sweden, right? I believe he's already moved back to Denmark, and so that already is just like, if we have to, it's really weird because now we're getting to that like a traditional sports situation where we have to like speculate what a player's gonna do because based off of where they're living now and like they've moved and stuff like that. But I hope that he gets back into playing as soon as possible, because you can clearly see Farley. He's kind of like, look, I'm just going to play for as long as possible. However I play, if I have to get cut, I get cut. Screw it. It makes sense. But I'm sure Astralis as an organization will happily take this guy back after they sold him for so much money to NIP. Just take him back for peanuts. I'm sure that is on the cards. And obviously peanuts in comparison, but that whole thing will be very, very nice for Device, and definitely very nice for Astralis if it can happen.
Yeah, I think one of the bigger things, I mean, Astralis need it. They need an opera who can hit shots, like an opera who just, you know, he can play. Farley in general is a pretty passive opera. I think I don't know what's happened to like a variety of operas in the space who just turned into, you know, shadows of their former self. Like if you remember what Farley was dishing out on Copenhagen Flames.
Oh yeah,
like that was a terrifying opera to play against, was Farley on Copenhagen Flames. You can make the statement that's, oh, it's tier 2, but I mean, even then, it just doesn't look like the same guy. Talk Junior, Talk Cirque. I mean, I think there's a couple more operas in the space that could definitely, I mean, it almost feels like Hades is starting to become a shadow of his former self. There's become talks there with Ents, whether they want to, you know, chop and change their lineup with Montu on the market. So that's always up in the air to look towards. But yeah, some teams need operas at the moment. Hey, what am I saying? Device to complexity. Take it.
I'd take that Copium all the way to the bench.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
I love it.
Totally.
Jason Lake's just got to whip out a big checkbook, go to Denmark, burst into his home as he did when he built the original complexity lineup. Put the empty checkbook on the table and say, "Hey, Device, just come on over."
Fill out your check, my friend. Fill out your check. If you're a real fan of the Not Acceptable podcast, you can go ahead and go on Twitter and at Jason Lake right now to go ahead and sign Device. Anyhow, we've talked about Device being an being potentially an Astralis. I mean, I have in my thumbnail in the top right corner. Vitality made their changes already. Any other teams that you expect to shuffle? We're covering a couple of them in a future segment that we'll dive into later on and kind of explain the premise of. But anything else on the Astralis or I guess on the player break preview? Do you have any other teams that might be shuffling as we can
Dexter,
top 30?
Yeah, Dexter did well at Cologne, but man, I would just love to have like a Hooksy there. Like that'd be so much fun, if in my opinion. Maybe even a JDC. Like there are so many different options. Like I think there is a lot of great pieces on Mouse that they are not going to ever make a run like that ever again. And I think that this has just extended the lineups period for just a little bit longer for us to not like it anymore.
Yeah, I forgot to add in as well that Pain Gaming have also, dropped Nekis from their lineup, which is interesting to see who they are going to be picking up. There's a gajillion Brazilian prodigies running around, and Pain Gaming have already picked up one in Nithon. Who's to say they can't pick up another? Either way, there are plenty of shuffles going on around. We already know that, well, this is about to happen. Something with G2. Well, might hide into that in overtime. Any thoughts on what G2 could possibly bring in for Alexi B, who as a player, I mean, Alexi B, is he overrated as an IGL?
I think it just wasn't the right system for him. Like he was discussing about how he doesn't have to micromanage these players anymore because they're all very tenured ones and they can kind of just do their own thing. And that was a whole thing that I had a huge discussion about with fans and analysts and whatnot about whether or not it made sense. And to me, it's like when I initially saw the Alexi B move, I was kind of upset because I wanted just m0NESY to come in because I felt like the system of G2 was still working as expected. They made the major final with considerably less firepower and a considerably handicapped lineup. And I thought that perhaps if they just brought in m0NESY, it would have just been a 1-for-1 upgrade and they could have carried on with Nexa. But now you're in a situation where you have to make do with what Xtaz is bringing to the table, and I think that they should bring in a player like an Alex maybe. Like Alex would be a fun one because I think he's dealt with a lot of French egos, which are very, very difficult to deal with that old Vitality lineup.
Perhaps.
And I think that he could possibly do it with G2. I think give him the reins. He did well with Cloud9, albeit the issues that they had with Fnatic as well. And obviously the results don't necessarily speak for themselves, but you could definitely see that they were T-side calling that G2 sorely lacks as of right now. And that's I think my big takeaway. I'd like to see Alex on this lineup.
I think the Alex topic has a bit of, question marks surrounding it. And that is, what on earth, like, look at the guy's track record. He got booted from, like, Fnatic in 3 months.
No, it's a tough case. I'll say that. It is a tough case to actually make a case.
I mean, how do you sell Alexi B to other teams? How do you sell Alex to this one? Other than that, you're picking up an IGL who's never played at this top space, because I think a lot of teams are still holding on to what they got, or the matches or this quote unquote matches aren't really there. I would be surprised to see Alex, but at the same time almost unsurprised because it's the only option G2 have. I'm surprised that G2 have shot themselves in the foot like this, but who are gonna cut? Let's be honest.
Yeah, you're kind of backed into a corner at that point. And you could see that, like, I didn't necessarily think that, like, the firepower was, like, missing. Like, it felt like everybody, like separately knew what they were doing, but it never converted on like, the actual server. And that, at that point, it's like, are you going to cut your coach? Or are you going to cut your IGL? And it looks like they made the latter choice. And I hope that they have a game plan. Yeah. And it looks like Carlos is a little bit wishy-washy with how it goes, and I hope that they have a plan.
Yeah, I guess that's Carlos has some fuck you money, so well, let's see if we'll see how he utilizes that fuck you money to save this team. Let's go ahead and just bounce off, because we have I think probably one of the more fun parts of this show that I try to assemble. Hopefully we can try and integrate this more with funny graphics and try to laugh everyone. But let's go and head into NA or EU. Well, folks, welcome to NA or EU. I'll set a timer for 10 minutes because we got 10 minutes to break down a metric truckload of topics. One of the gimmicks that we're running with here on the show as we enter into our final 15 minutes, holy hell, is that, well, we're gonna go ahead and try and blast on through this and get this one done. Basically, well, I think the header that I wrote up is basically we're kind of running with a yay or nay type of deal. We're in the rundown segment of the show, so let's go ahead and quickly get into it because we're going to try and run through all of these topics. Pally, you got to pick one, NA or EU, based on the headline, so let's go ahead and jump in.
First I was looking forward to this segment. Dexter to OG. I think this is an EU move. Gotta say an EU move. I like how aggressive and how willing he is to take fights. Give me an EU here.
Okay, you're gonna take the EU. I mean, Dexter was a competent player. What I've thought about this move is like they literally just like it's like a Tinder date. All right, this is like a Tinder date type move. They just both OG and Dexter swiped right at the same time, and now they're on a Tinder date. I'm thinking this is an NA move. I think they've jumped the gun way too early on this move. This earns the Stewie 2K PNG from me, unfortunately, for this move. Will it make them better? Maybe. Will it accomplish the goals that OG as an organization want? No. That's my final move. Let's quickly move on because we don't got all the time in the world. Let's be honest here.
Amanek to LDLC. I don't even know at this point. What is Amanek doing? Do you want to go back down to help some French nobodies? Is that really all you've got on the table? You've got quite a bit of tenure in your career. I think I'm just going to say it's an NA move because I just wish that he could just do a little bit more. He's a very competent player, and I wish more from him.
Well, I mean, I don't want to pick NRE. Is this like a CIS move? Like, are we talking going in between? Like, I need to like make a CIS one. I guess I'll put up the CIS player for this one, but I mean, it's good. It's like creating a weird French shuffle where like Amanek is going down to help out the younger players, and maybe Shocks goes back to Falcons, or there's a lot of things that are going to be happening. I mean, great job, Amanek. You're helping out the lower guys, but it's just this team doesn't seem like results to me. The list of players is a bunch of French youngsters, so good luck, I guess. On to the next.
Eternal Fire.
Oh yeah, man. I have my reservations, but you go first.
This one is just what I don't even know. I don't like this at all. I hate it.
I already know what you're going with. I know what I'm going with.
Yeah, no, it's just like we already jumped the gun with bringing in Major and instead of Calyx, right? That one makes sense. They needed an IGL,
right? I didn't really like Calyx on the team either. Let's be honest here.
Honestly, it was a pretty good upgrade, and now you get rid of xFloud, one of your youngsters who has so much promise. I think that he was very underutilized on this team. They gave him a lot of shit roles. They made him play some really difficult stuff.
Well.
He still played well. And he still clutched up a storm. He was such a consistent player. Why are we getting rid of him and making this roster the Turkish last dance? I don't want to see it.
It's a sellout, man. They're just trying to, sell a couple more jerseys and get a couple more investors on board. They kicked probably the best Turkish anchor player there is. He's a youngster. He still has, I think, a lot to go with. I wouldn't be surprised if he entered into a team. Mouse might just have an available spot for this guy. Please pick this guy up. Just by looking at the eye test alone, this guy is a clutcher. This guy has impact. He has multi-frag ability. Get this guy. And Eternal Fire, what the fuck? All right. We're in the halfway point. We're actually making some great progress here. Funny how we are utilizing an EG player to describe NA moves. Here is one NA move. I think we all know the EG roster rumors at this rate. Is this based in red pilled, or is this just what the fuck?
Based in simple pilled.
Okay.
I think I think I'm just gonna take this at face value, right? Like objectively, I have my qualms with the Bluepoint project, but I think that bringing in a Hooksy, bringing in a Valde, they are good players. Don't get me wrong. I think Stewie has got to find himself again. He's like kind of lost his identity. He's really struggling with who he believes he is. Whether or not that's Valorant, whether that's just going back to another NA roster, we'll see. But that makes sense. There's a lot of drama surrounding him, and it doesn't look like he actually has that fire to win anymore. Moving out Rush, I don't like that move per se, because I think Rush is a very dependable player when you have players like Breezy and Cirque that are I don't.
But Valde! Woo!
Yeah, but
but
it's like great. I mean, Valde's cool. Like I like him as a player. I like what he's done. I think pound for pound, I'm just gonna go with simple here. I'm gonna go EU. Just because I'm like maybe like 65-35 in favor of this move. I'm not really sure.
Yeah, now that Montu's back on the market too, I'm not sure what EG are gonna take as well. What they were going for? Yeah, they were going for Hooksy / Nealon. I don't. Apparently, Nealon's English is like really good.
Really?
Yeah, I think I mean he's like been in FPL for a long time. So, and also I think he's been respected as an IGL and as a player by some of the best in the world. So I mean, if they're gonna try and scout out Nealon as a top IGL, I mean, go for it. At the same time, I mean,
K23 is already dead. So
I mean, yeah, K23 is a dead team. So I mean, maybe go ahead and just run with Nealon. I think people were like, what the heck, Nealon? I think he's not a bad pickup. Is he gonna bring EG? I think the most this roster can hope for is like top 15. I mean,
not last place in EPL will be a step in the right direction.
That will be. That's the goal. I want to be a CIS again. I wish. I'm gonna make the CIS one as well, because I'm just in the middle. I'm so like neutral. You know, I think as NA, do we even like care about the EG main team these days? Like, did we just accepted that we're just depressed?
Yeah.
So I mean, you'll get the EU because they have EU players. I guess that's all. That EU because it's EU players. A flawless logic right there. All right, next up. We've talked about this 1 more billion times already. Do you want to say any words, any extra words on this before we just
The misspelling is just it sums up how we really think about this.
Where is he going?
I don't know. I will say he is such a big pawn for G2. Like he can move. Like IGLs right now are so like valuable on the market right now. There's so many teams that could really, really love to have one. A lot of these international lineups as well. Maybe he just drops down a peg and he climbs back up like Ents. So like on his former Finnish roster.
Because has spots.
Yeah. I mean, I just want to see him back in action as quick as possible and try to compete in tier 1 tournaments as soon as possible, because this guy still has got a lot to give. I think this is just wrong place, wrong time.
All right, and for finally, this was the news that went on. You know, the news are supposed to get progressively worse and worse. So, well, here's what we call a quote-unquote bottom of the barrel. Not for the Czech fans watching. Oh, sorry. NA, EU. Is G2 dropping Alexi V an NA or an EU moment? I
think this is an EU, just in the sense that they're trying to like align the view of where G2's identity is going to be in the future, and that's a step in the right direction. Obviously, it's like, if I had to say as a whole, this is a pretty shit move, just like bringing in Alexi B and just throwing him out after 6 months. But we'll go with the EU for right now.
All right. Get out of here, Stewie and Simple, because we got one more. Zero joining alongside Sinners. This is kind of the news that probably went under the radar. There are a couple other like miscellaneous topics, but quickly, NA, EU, just from the eye test.
Let's go EU here. I think Zero has always been around the scene for quite some time. Sinners have been playing with their coach for a while. I think it's just a logical step. You're obviously going to take a huge hit if you don't have Neofrag or Oscar.
Yeah, I know, dude.
So it's like, so be it.
Sinners are completely gutted without Neofrag. I guess I'm not even gonna put anything. You're not gonna find out what I'm answering.
Nice.
All right. Screw this. This has been NA or EU. On to the next. What's up, noobs? Welcome back. We're finally in the final leg of the show. We got 5 minutes to close this whole darn thing out. So let's go ahead and run it. We got the players of the week. Let's just go ahead and quickly dive into both of our, we're calling it stonks, players of the week who exponentially improved over a good span of time. And Pally, I'm just going to jump right into yours because, well, let's go ahead and just stake your claim, my friend.
Loved what I saw from Team Liquid, and especially in Elige. I was very, very excited to see that he's back in form. He found a little bit more of his footing and his identity again, because he is one of NA's greatest players of all time. He is one that has fought through thick and thin, and we saw at Antwerp, he had a 0.81 rating in the challengers, or sorry, in the main stage, I believe, 1.09 in the main stage, or sorry, in the challenger stage, 0.88 at Katowice, and I think Dallas, he had a 1.1, and he had a 1.25 here at Cologne, and that's just a huge step. And you can just see the confidence in him going in second, third. You can feel that superstar caliber nature of Elige just ooze out from him at this time around, and I think that is one of the biggest things to make Elige and Team Liquid a top 20 team to a top 10, top 5 team. You got to have Elige satiated and hungry to win.
Back to having monster games. I'll go along with that, but I guess it would go to be Elige's nemesis, I suppose, if for my choice of player, and that is Mopod's performance here at IEM Cologne. What? Are you kidding me? A 1.05 rating? Yeah, that's an HL from your average HL TV forum poster thread who doesn't actually watch the games. Mopod is a huge player for this Movistar team. Again, I mentioned him as one of the inconsistent elements, but he is a necessary element for this Riders team. He is an aggressive rifler. He is the hard entry. He is Mr. Opening Kill, and that reflects it in the impact rating that he's been gifted out. He's in the top 5 percentile of all players. So, I mean, this guy is just a monster of a guy. Oops.
I did a video on him on my channel, and I think that his success is a direct correlation to Movistar Riders' success. He is just unstoppable, and I would have put him as my person to invest if you hadn't picked it first.
Yeah.
So,
I'll
give it to you.
I think there's some qualities. I think Mopaz has consistently become more consistent. Wow. My mastery of the English language is memorable and admirable.
We cast video games.
Yeah, by the way, we have a wide vocabulary here. But the thing I say for Mopaz is I think he used to be such an inconsistent force. He would have, his amazing performances. He's always been an entry rifler, but if you remember international Movistar Riders, God, what a cursed team that was with Smuya and Shocks, Estonian Shocks. That was a cursed lineup where, Mopaz was just forced to the bottom of the scoreboard in a lot of these games. He's been freed up a lot. I think being in Spanish communication has helped this player. He's been the sole reason that this Riders team has been a force. Like, you could call it some pious all you want. He's there to be consistent. So Mopaz is he's basically, if Riders are gonna do well, Mopaz is gonna do well, and Mopaz has been looking better and better.
I just want to see them at more tournaments, and I think I was doing a little bit of a perusal. I was like, what is their next tournament going to be? Because they're not going to be at Blast Fall Groups.
Sure.
They will be at EPL, I'm pretty sure, because it's like the top 4 teams in the EPL world ranking that aren't partner teams, and I believe Movistar Riders is one of them, which has me really excited that we at least get to see them for a little bit longer. I think the same thing goes for a team like Team Spirit, who also showed a little bit of potential, who are also, I think, in that little bit of a ESL world ranking shoe in. So that's good to see.
I think that's for sure. I'm excited to see more from the Riders. Elige is back to old form, and I mean that goes back to our liquid point. If we really want to just run it back to that while we're going back, here you go. Are they back? Well, Elige is, and that gives us all the more hope to go into. With 10 seconds remaining on the clock, we're gonna head into our 1 minute of overtime because we don't actually have any other things to go towards. Welcome to overtime, folks. You have a minute to ask us a single question if you have any questions. But if you were enjoying this broadcast as it is, I think we're just gonna go ahead and close out the show. Anything final to say as we have about checking real quick? You have 45 seconds to go ahead and knock this segment out.
Hey, I'd like to think that we had a pretty good first episode.
Yeah.
Well, production was fantastic.
Let's
Shout out to our
go!
producer. Shout out to our
Finecast!
producer Fi.
Look at this. Look who's producing this. All right. Yeah, that's
Bravo.
right. I made all these slides. I put in hard work. I was in the Photoshop. I didn't make the thumbnail. That was his thumbnail creator. But I'm proud of this little creation that I've put together. And I think this so far went well. The thing is, here for those listening, this can only get better. This is the first episode. So, you know, we're coming up with more ideas. Probably going to, you know, shuffle up the run of show that we got up and running. We have 5 seconds. So this has been episode 1 of the NA podcast. We'll see you then. Woo!